Well, we started by setting up the Basic Income European Network in 1986. And the group of us, philosophers, economists, sociologists, activists, came together because most of us realized that with globalization, with the pursuit of flexible labor markets, there was a spread of economic insecurity. Okay, that was the primary situation back in the 1980s with globalization. And the old welfare states in Europe were unable to respond because they were based on social insurance, they were based on contributions equaling benefits, and suddenly growing numbers of people were insecure who weren't able to make contributions, and they weren't getting any benefits back. And the welfare states were converting into being means testing, targeting on the poor, conditions growing, all of those things, which were not answering anything. So you see a growth of poverty, you see a growth of inequality, and we saw all that in the 1980s. And we set up and we said, look, what if we were to try and argue for moving the other way, to going to a rights-based approach where you provide everyone with a modest basic income which would give them some sense of control over their lives. So capacity to be rational, a capacity, just as I was explaining, that we've been seeing in those Indian villages. So that was the motivation. And then gradually people from around the world, from Latin America, from Korea, from Japan, and elsewhere, outside Europe, were saying, look, these things are realities in our countries. We would like to join. So in 2004, at our Barcelona conference of Bien, we renamed ourselves Bien, but it became Basic Income Earth Network for everybody. And since then, we've had the growth of members from all over the world. We've had wonderful contributions from colleagues from many places. And I'm delighted to say that the number of Koreans who've become involved and the establishment of a Basic Income Korean network is something that I've been very impressed by. And it's very exciting because I've come to know Korean friends, Korean activists and intellectuals who are genuinely committed to giving a basic income as a necessary element for building dignified lives. And we all know, and we heard yesterday, the growth of the precariat in Korea is as dramatic as in anywhere in the world. Young people, young women in particular, are being put into situations of vulnerable insecurity. And I think the debate around the precariat is where many millions of people, many young people in particular, can understand, because they feel precarious in the sense that they have unstable labor, unstable lives, living on the edge of uncertainty all the time, a sense they don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, okay? The term I use in the books is unknown unknowns, the sense that you could be hit by an accident tomorrow and it would tip you from bad debt into unsustainable debt, so that you cannot overcome the burdens of insecurity and indebtedness. And then, as we've seen, and we've seen it in many countries, social illnesses, suicide tendencies, drug addiction. All of these responses have been widespread. I am very angry because many governments around the world have used the outcomes as if they are the causes of the precarious lives. In other words, they turn and they say, look, these young people are drinking, taking drugs, committing suicide. These people, they condemn them. We should be very angry when we hear people talk like that, because we are dealing with a systemic situation, a systemic requirement of global capitalism which wants and depends on an unstable labor supply. They want people to be flexible, to move around, to accept unemployment, to retrain and pursue a life of permanent obsolescence, permanently living on the edge. And we who are trying to articulate a response to that human crisis must say, no, we will not accept this as the basis of society for the 21st century. Our parents and our grandparents worked very hard to build up economic system, and the outcome is that a small privileged share of the population in the world and in places like Korea or in Britain or anywhere is receiving vast amounts of income. They are rent-seeking. They take part of the wealth generated and more, whereas down in the precariat, wages are falling, wages are volatile, there's no access to benefits, pensions. You can dream, but you won't receive a pension. So we have to fight for a new system of income distribution, a new system in which everybody in society should be entitled to a share of the income that's being created by your parents, my parents, his parents, and their parents. And we don't know who. We don't know if it was his parents, my parents, or your parents who made that wealth that we all see around us. But we have to say everybody has a right to basic security. Because without basic security, you cannot be rational. You cannot build your life. You cannot be a citizen and be part of society. And therefore, we should demand, for everybody's sake, that everybody should have a basic income, because all of us will gain. There will be a better sense of community. There will be a better sense of sharing, a better sense of family, community. Many of the things that I know have been vital parts of traditional Korean society, just as they have been in Europe. Traditional societies of communal sharing, of saying, I could be in his shoes, he could be in my shoes, and therefore we should have a sense of empathy. And my new book is about the need to recover empathy. I don't know which Korean word would be it. I'm sure you will find it. But we, all of us, must join in a struggle for the precariat, for people in fear of joining the precariat, in order for us to say to the establishments, to say to the state, don't presume that we will tolerate the growing inequality, the growing insecurity, the growing precariousness. And we are here, and we are demanding basic income as a right. And that, I think, is what our movement's all about. It's about fighting for economic security, and it's about fighting for social justice. And that's what Bien is all about. I know that people in the precariat often have to work much harder than people up in what I call the salariat. They often have to do many tasks which they do not want to do. They often have to do labor which is paying very low, but they work very full-time, not part-time, very full-time. But much of that work is not paid, okay? It includes many tasks that women do, many caring tasks. It includes tasks looking for jobs, they're trying to get more training, networking. All of these things are time constraining. And of course, if you are in those circumstances, if you have a small child, if you have debt, if you have to network, you're not going to have any time. We see many people suffering what I call in the book the precariatized mind. The mind that doesn't know what is the best use of time in order for us to have a chance to escape from poverty and insecurity. And I would say to people in those circumstances, try, if you can, to find the strength to join any movement, because you are not alone. You are not alone. And part of our struggle is to make all of us understand that. I say one of the great things that has happened in the last 3 years with all the social movements and the social protests is there's been a sense of recognition. A sense, when I look in the mirror in the morning, if I have luck to have a mirror, if I look in the mirror, I no longer feel sorry for myself because I'm a failure. I see in the mirror millions like me, millions like you and you. And we are part of a collective experience. And we can only overcome the insecurity and the precarious existence if we come together and see ourselves in our friends, our neighbors, our community people who are experiencing the same problems. And that, I think, is what I would say to any person listening to this who is feeling depressed, who is feeling alienated, marginalized, even suicidal. I say, don't. Start feeling strong. Because strength comes from realizing that we were all part of the human condition. And we owe it to ourselves, our loved ones, our friends, our relatives, to join in a struggle. Join an organization. Join a movement. I myself have spent 30 years in struggles, and I see things like what we've been doing in India, and I feel humble because of what we have seen. We know that if people are given hope, they can recover and make life for themselves. And 30 years, 40 years of building a life after that is possible. But we must struggle. Nothing will come easily. It is a matter of engaging in political activity, engaging in organizations. I know it's difficult. I know it's difficult. And if you're being defeated and punched and punched and punched, it's very, very difficult. But all I will say is find the strength. Because if we can all find some strength and relate the experience that we understand to others, then there is hope and we can make progress. And I say to my Korean friends, I feel solidarity with the experience of the precariat in Korea. I feel solidarity with those now working for a basic income. And I salute you all because it takes courage to be involved. It takes courage to make a commitment to an idea, a struggle. And we all need to realize that actually when you do that, it gives your life something. It really does. As I say to friends, the journey is important.